Happy Monday, good friends. We are here. It is Pink Pixels. It is the place I love to be more than anywhere else on the internet. It is because here we have good conversations with good people. It's an opportunity for us to dig deeper, to have an idea of the experiences, the emotions, the challenges, the joys that we all go through. And it's through this opportunity of learning about the experiences of others that kind of we get the experience a little bit as well. Our own little XP boost, if you will, because leveling up is hard when you're doing it alone. So building together, growing together, learning together is the best way to level up a lot faster. At least that's what I'm learning, because I do not want to go into Skyrim and spend, 50 years making 1,000,000 daggers to level up my welding. So in this is our place where we get to connect, where we don't have to take the long route, but we can build and grow together. And it's through these opportunities where we share, where we learn, where we listen, that I want to thank you all for being always such an amazing community, of coming back week after week, listening, tuning in, whether you're watching the recording as a VOD, listening on the podcast, or coming here for our live show on one of our many channels that we're over on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, herever, wherever. I appreciate it because you're choosing to go extra. You're choosing to be here and learn more, to go beyond just your own experiences. And that takes effort. It takes time. It takes purposefulness and investment, and not only your career, but in this world of gaming, of esports, of anything and everything within this space that we care about. So thank you. Now, today we have an amazing guest, and I know that sounds a little repetitive because you all might go, Beck, you say that every week, and that's because I mean it. I'm not a liar, all right? Every week we have amazing women and femme-presenting individuals who come into this space, who share about themselves, who bring a degree of vulnerability, of honesty, of where they are, what they've been doing, and it is so wonderful. And I hope you all realize how amazing it is that we get on such amazing guests who are so accomplished, that are here and wanting to connect and share their story, that I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It is phenomenal. And it just shows how important it is that we look for open doors, where we look for conversations. Sometimes certain industries can seem like they're shrouded in mystery. How do we navigate this? How are we supposed to succeed? And it's because we're not aware of the voices or the people that are there that are trying to provide guidance, that are helping to share their pathway. And this is an illuminating pathway that we have here tonight. Now, our guest here, fantastic. I already can tell you that she has amazing patience because she's had to deal with me already for quite a few minutes. But beyond that, she is by far more accomplished. So I want to turn it over to her because, one, I've talked too much already, but two, I can't wait to hold her back. All right, so let's bring her into this. Jessica Murrey, please come say hello to our wonderful audience here today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jess. I am the CEO and co-founder of Wicked Saint Studios. We are a female and Black-led game studio, and it is our mission to empower the next generation to build a better world and live a happier life. And we do that by combining the power of movement with the pleasure of gameplay. My background's a little bit different. I come from the international peace building world. I'm sure we're going to get into it. I used to train young movement leaders and activists all over the world, and now we want to embolden everybody. And we think gameplay is the best way to do it. So we're building the first game of its kind. It's called World Reborn, the world's first adventure activism game, a real fantasy. We're playing with what we call the genre, but basically it's an interactive story game with real world quests that you actually do in real life, and all facilitated by augmented reality and some really cool community stuff. So we came out of Niantic Labs incubators that make us Pokemon Go, and now we're backed by Riot Games, and super excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So when you mentioned things like this, I was like, this is everything that I love in a game, right? Where it's interactive, we get to create stories. And first of all, the title alone is so intriguing, World Reborn, because so many times when we enter in video games, it is a form of escapism, but it also is a chance for us to revisit what our world could look like if it were better, if it were different, if this variable was different, if this thing was there, or whatever the challenges are. So I want to ask, very early seeds of this game, what planted those to say, we need to do this as a video game? This is a world worth creating. This is even a world worth imagining. What prompted that?
Yeah, no, the story is actually a little bit of a long one, because it is evolved. It is evolved over the last. It's been over a decade now when we
Mhm.
like set out. So our mission, our mission has remained the same,
Yes.
for like the last 10 years, but like we completely even switched like, let's say like genres, like jobs, careers. I think so. I started in the nonprofit world, so
Yeah.
this all really started. So I'm a lover of stories. I am a story fanatic and a consumer of stories, fictional stories, true stories. But I really love stories, and so
You're also an Emmy Award winning, storyteller as well. Like, okay, yeah, you love stories, but like you're especially good at stories. Let's not minimize this here for a second.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
So okay, let's start there then. Let's start there where that happened. Because thank you, because I do love storytelling, and it's funny because storytelling will get you far in life, you guys. Like I'm telling you this right now. Like I am like I'm okay at like schools. Like my like quickness level is not there, but if you can tell a story, that will take you far in life. I'm a little bit biased, but just to
It's
say,
facts.
like it's like my only skill set, and it's just kind of there. So okay, so this all started actually with when I graduated college
Hmm.
because I went to school for journalism, international relations. Surprise, 20 something year old Jessica, you're like now have a game studio. But yeah, so I like wanted to be a journalist, like telling like investigative journalist, like out in the world, telling stories of like in like war zones. Like that was the vision of where I'd be.
Mm.
And I graduated in 2010 when they said print was dead.
Yes.
And I um, so I went right into working for my local television station. So I'm a small town girl. I'm from Medford, Oregon. Any Oregonians out there? So I'm from
Ooh.
Medford, Oregon. Yes, yes. It's a little place. I totally thought I was going to go to like New York or like San Francisco or LA, and I ended up in my hometown of Medford, Oregon, as it should be. And I was doing awareness campaigns. They put me in charge of all the awareness campaigns. So I was doing anti-child abuse, anti-domestic abuse,
Ooh.
anti-sexual abuse. And so I was telling stories, but I was telling stories of really horrible things after they happened. And I was like, man, there has to be a way to stop bad things before they happen.
Yeah.
So they ended up winning. So those awards were my ticket to DC, where I started working for Search for Common Ground. So Search for Common Ground is the world's largest dedicated peace building organization nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. So they have offices in 35 countries
Mhm.
all over the world. With most of their staff local to the areas that they work in. And they do everything from reconciliation after genocide, prevention of mass atrocity work, um, countering violent extremism, refugee integration, and they have this really unique approach to conflict, believing that our inability to deal with difference stops us from making progress on every single issue we face. So,
Mm.
if you care about the environment, if you care about race issues, if you care about equality, um, whatever it is you care about, we have to collaboratively problem solve in order to fix those problems. And it often means working with the very people that we think are part of the problem, or our opponents, to collaborate, to not just to get them on our side
Right.
either, but to actually co-create something with them, because that's how sustainable change happens.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, the pendulum just swings to who's ever holding power. So we like fight over our side to hold power, right? And then our side gets it, and we pull the power lever, and we're like, progress, until the other side gets it, right? And then the pendulum just like swings
Hmm.
the other way. And like we've been seeing that recently, right? Like that just we
Yes.
are like, very much swinging. And
Right.
so like that's how you create sustainable change, and it's also how you break cycles of violence, whether that is
Mm.
emotional, physical, or structural, in the sense of oppression. And it's this really unique approach. And often, because what happens is a lot of times we get really passionate about these things that we care about,
Right.
and we end up trying to shame people into behaving the way we think they should behave.
Mm.
Um, but science shows that when you try to shame people, it actually pushes them farther into extremism,
Mm.
and leaves them vulnerable to be pulled into. So anyways, all that to say is I fell in love with this approach.
Yeah.
And I was like, why aren't we all talking about and doing this approach? And it's also where I met my co-founder. She was there too. She's a behavioral science researcher. And so Search brought me in to do marketing. I was supposed to do like social media posts.
About really heavy topics and okay,
Yes.
yes.
I was trying to get people to care, which is hard. And so I needed stories from the field. And so I started working with our local staff and started training them in storytelling. And then pretty soon they started writing me into programs. And so I ended up going into the field into like Burundi, Nigeria, Myanmar, Colombia, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia. I've never been to Mexico. True story. True story. Never been to Mexico, but I've been to Kyrgyzstan. And
naturally, obvious progression of locations. Yes.
I know. I did go to Canada for the first time in my life last year, which was fantastic. But I ended up going and meeting these incredible young people and training them in what we call common ground activism, how to attack the problem, not the person. And then strategic storytelling campaigns and experiences that shift attitudes and behavior, and often like use gameplay to like do in the trainings to because
like as a simulation.
Are, like yes, and to get the creativity out and to get the because you go these places and most of the time I didn't speak the language and I had a translator, and so it's like we're gonna have fun together and we're gonna get creative and like it's their words, they have the ideas. It was just my job to like get it out. Like fairy godmother, I see myself like fairy god. It's like you just gotta get like you have the sparkle. Like it just
that sounds so difficult. Like it sounds wonderful. Where you're like, yeah, we bring the fairy godmother dust, and like we're gonna help bring this situation in. But you're right. Like you're putting them in situations where people feel very polarized already, and you are asking them to do something that is very difficult. And when you mention like marketing, social media, that is not one place where people often engage in fair dialogue or listening or wanting to change or have open minds. So I can't imagine the type of walls and conversations you had to work to get through to try to even help people to see that this is even an option, much less here's how we do it. Because that's a huge attitude change and social practice of how we interact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's something called transformational changes and stages of that. And so it's important when you're talking to someone to know where they are on their states of change, right? And so there's denial, it's not a problem.
Right.
Helpless, it's a problem, there's nothing I can do about it. Interested, like, oh, maybe. And then committed, I'm in. And then maintenance, or like, I will continue to be in. And oftentimes we talk to people like they're where we are. We're like committed, and they're like still, and like they're like, if you don't even know if it's a they're not even convinced it's a problem,
right.
And so really, and also there's some like base things that start to help us, right? Like that you start to learn. So for example, I see bias as a head issue, not a heart issue. So what I mean by that is like, a lot of times we think like if somebody has bias that they're a bad, evil person, but our brains are actually wired to have bias. Like they are wired to jump to conclusions and to assumptions. It's how we've survived, when we're out in the prairie and like the grass is blowing or like rustling and you're like, your brain's like, there could be a predator there, right? Like it's like, and so the cool thing about that is because it's a brain thing, it can be rewired, and so when you start to, so then you can like look at this person and be like, okay, maybe they're not a bad, evil person because they hold this belief, but like maybe like, and this is what, like, bring it back to stories. Like, this is why stories are so powerful, because behavior change doesn't happen by giving people information. Unfortunately, it happens through experiences, and stories are a really powerful way that you can have an experience that you would never be able to have. And then so I had been working with stories for a while. And then once I started getting into interactive stories, I was like, this is this is the next evolution.
We did it.
You're like,
This is
no,
it.
this is it. Like, this is like, you're no longer vicariously living through someone, which is so powerful.
Yes.
So I don't want to like, but like now you are the main character. You get to decide how to respond, and then you get to experience the consequences of your decisions, but in a really safe place. And so like that's like, so what ultimately ended up happening was I was doing the trainings, I was seeing these young people go back and transform their communities, and just like super powerful. But like meanwhile back home the US was on fire. Like we were
like looking
we were
at
not,
these are not the same. Hold on here.
it's like who really is the war torn country here, you know? Like it is we're not getting along, we're not listening to each other, you know, we're not making progress, we are polarizing each other because we're shaming each other, right? For how frustrated. And I mean, it makes sense. We are wicked saints, but I am not a saint. Like I totally get it, you know? And so the idea was like, how do we scale this approach? So every young person has this skill to like build the world that they want. And was working with American teens, and there was a lot of learnings there. So this is also coming out of the pandemic, you know? So the same tenets of like at a peace building level of like what makes society work also is the same at like interpersonal conflict and like relationships. So like dealing with people, dealing with problems, a lot of it was invoking a lot of anxiety, just like having to like anywhere from like telling the waiter got the order wrong, you know?
As an introvert alone, yes. But like when you add in more complicatedness, like even it just reminds me, like even the very first time you're like, your parents go, you have to make your own doctor's appointment. And it's like, no, I don't. What if I say something wrong? No, totally. Like all the things, dealing with people that you know, people that you don't know, you know, like all these things. And so I was working with American teens, saw how passionate they were about all these different issues, but also saw that very few of them were actually taking action in the real world around these things that they cared about. And what we found was the barrier was it was a lack of self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to accomplish a goal. Number one indicator, whether someone will take action or not, is if they actually believe they can do the thing. You know, like you believe, like go off the diving board, high diving board. Do you believe you can do it? If you don't, you're probably not gonna jump, right? Like it's the prerequisite.
Yes. And so we had all these other assumptions. Oh, they're not doing because they don't know what to do, or like the first thing was like belief. Like, do you believe you can do it? Do you believe you have options? You know? And what we found is that a lot of us, especially today, just feel very powerless in a very big and out of control world. That the teens, American teens I was talking to, they were passionate about things, but they didn't believe they could move the needle on any of those things that they were passionate about. But there was one place where they would go, where they always had a chance to feel good and feel powerful and level up, and that's within games. Games are built with the core game loop. Look at this. I know it took 30 minutes, so we got back to games.
No, I love it. We built the foundation for this.
This is the foundation, exactly.
But it builds so clearly where it's like we think about we need to put it into practice. We like to be able to see challenge, but we also want to be able to measure growth. Video games is starting to measure up on multiple variables. Like that's why it does appeal, because it's like, where do you go from like having a journalism degree, going into the nonprofit space, and you go, let's own a video game studio. Like this is not what people would say. Like, yes, that is the natural career progression.
Do you follow it though?
Yes.
I swear it makes so much sense, because the amazing thing about games is you're built the core game loop. Every time you go around that loop, you get better. Yeah. What's happening is you're getting mastery. And mastery is how you start to believe in yourself. Not when someone tells you you're great, but when you actually become a master at something. And so you play the video game, you feel good playing it, you're feeling powerful, becoming a can I say ass? Well, I guess I just said ass.
Yeah, it's too
okay. Becoming a badass. Like, yeah. But then you stop playing and reality comes crashing back down. And so we asked ourselves, like, could we build a game where all the power that you gain within the game actually starts to bleed into your real life? So you actually become more confident and build those, like all those skills. Your relationships start to improve, and then you go out into the world and create the world that you deserve.
Hmm. It helps seeing, practicing, and also seeing it. I think that's also the key thing of
Yes,
the
the
like,
feedback.
this
Hmm.
actually exists. This is what it could look like. Both when you, because I like the term consequences because it's both the positive and sometimes not so ideal
Yeah.
outcomes that we want. And knowing how one to anticipate those can be very important because if it's negative, even though it's something that we did well, it can
Hmm.
discourage it still just the same. So being able to anticipate and know and frame that is so important because you're right, doing it in a safe space matters. The
Yeah.
world is terrifying, and there's a lot of voices that try to tell us what is right or wrong or how we should do
Hmm.
things. And that's difficult to navigate, especially when you're already feeling helpless, if you're feeling insignificant, if you're feeling like it doesn't matter anyway. Wow. So yeah, okay. I want to go back to the, yeah, this was the most zigzag pathway. I love that. But when I look at that, it tells me this was a pathway that wasn't chosen necessarily because you thought, "Oh, this will naturally lead to where I want to be." But it's, I saw something that mattered to me and I'm following the solution to help with things that matter to me. And it feels so authentic in your approach. And I love that. It feels very genuine in which the way that you're bringing it in. Oh gosh.
Thank you.
Good. No, but that leads to, of course, like when other people are like, how do I get into your spot? You're like, find something you matter, you care about, right? Like at the end
Yeah.
of the day,
No,
wow.
it's it's so true. Like, so one of our, so we have a couple of company values at Wicked Saints, and like the wicked part of Wicked Saints is
Mm-hmm.
nonconformity. So like we're going to challenge authority and social norms in the way that like it has to be done or whatever. And but
Mm-hmm.
in order to like balance that nonconformity is my poor team. That's like all my team members are like rock stars within the industry and stuff. And so they have to deal with me all the time. I'm like, but why? Um,
They have to. Poor
so
things. Come on.
I know, poor things. I know, poor things. I know. I love you guys so much. So like, but so there's nonconformity, but our North Star is purpose. Like, there always has to be a purpose. Like, what are you going for and why? And our purpose and our mission, like I said, like both me and my co-founder Alicia, who's a behavioral science researcher, she's also like the yin to my yang. We are complete opposites. Like, you give me line paper, I won't even write in the lines. And Alicia's like has already make sure it's backed by research. She has
Mm-hmm.
the spreadsheet out, implementation. Like, we are,
Color
this
coded.
is how, yes, I could not run a company by myself, you guys. This would not. I would like be over there. But we are so completely different, but
Yeah.
we are completely 100% bought into our purpose of empowering entire generation to, we call it like, be dragon riders, to like have the common ground, like to be, this common ground activism, attack the. And so because we have this purpose, we can pursue that and we can trust each other, And so what it does is it makes us be able to work together because we're able to create something better than what because we're not stuck in our little boxes. And so we're also trying to do that within like Wicked Saints, where it's like, okay, this is always the purpose and we're going to follow the purpose. Even if
Mm-hmm.
that leads us to like some place that we did not expect, we can figure it out. Like, let's go.
Yeah. Yes. It's so important to have, yes, that North Star, as you will, to be like, okay, as long as we keep our sights here, everything else that we do, it gives you so much more wiggle room to give you that flexibility, that adaptation, those new
Yeah.
challenges, those new resources to make it fit in, new research, right? That helps.
Hmm.
And I love, yeah,
It's complete freedom.
yes, yes. That probably also gives is a lot more conversations, honestly, where you have to kind of check base because a North Star works as long as you can always see it. The moment you lose sight of it, it is
Yes.
very difficult. And if not everyone can see it, they have to cling then to someone else, like their trusted leaders, right? To make sure that their
Uh-huh.
leaders see it. So, what is it
Yeah.
like to sometimes have to tell people this is what our North Star looks like? How do you pass on that same kind of vision? And I know we've been kind of talking about communication anyway. So this
Yes.
clearly is a strength of yours. How do you bring that to make sure everyone on your team sees that vision?
Hmm. Well, it's something that I've been actively trying to grow in and get better at. Because what we realize is when your team is super small, when there's like 3 or 4 of you, it's like you're on it, like you're like, especially like Alicia and I, we've been working together for like 10 years, like I said, we thought we were going to be nonprofit people for the rest of our life. Like we'd never like we were like we business was like why and then we needed to pursue it because like that was the goal. If we want to reach millions and we want young people to buy into it, like opt in that like this is something I want to do and actually own, then it has to be fun enough, gorgeous enough, the plot's got to be great, the rent, like everything's got to be like we need money so that we could bring on we could bring on people with talent. But as the team grows, it's been something where like this, especially this last year, because we went from we raised our pre-seed at like we raised a 1 million pre-seed, then we just brought on 3.5 million this summer. And so we brought in a whole bunch of people and like a lot of like veterans within the industry. And Alicia and I are like working over here, people are like, this is the way it's done, like this is. And we're like, but why? Why is it done that way? Because we want to take out the pieces that like work for us, but we're not just trying to make money. We're like trying to like recharge the minds and souls and all that kind of stuff, And so it's taken is like really understanding that like I have an experience in my head and objectives in my head that I want the player to experience at every different moment of the game and when and where. And I have to get better and worked on it, really verbalizing that. Like every time we go, whether it's a feature, whether it's a story, whether it's an approach, that I outline the strategy and the objective for like, hey, this is why we're doing this and what we want them to feel within this. And then we can go down the planning and execution. Because what happens a lot of times is I have a lot of ideas. So in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, oh, this would be great because then they can experience this. And then I'm down and I'm already like way down the line. And then I go talk to the team. I'm like, I think we should do this. And they're like, what? And so like,
time out. Do you have any idea how many hours this is going to add?
And so it's been really, so just like that practice, one of our investors is a co-founder of Discord, Arif Razmini, and he talks about having that elevation switch and being very clear where you are in your discussions. So like, hey, I'm up here in strategy. This is what we want to experience. This is what we're going for. Because I'm also creative director of the game. So I'm like, hey, this is what we want. And then I can be like, all right, I'm dipping down to execution. That's why I'm thinking these few things could be really good, but open for like whatever else could help us get here, and be able to communicate so they don't feel trapped in these things and not know why we're doing these different things or making these pivots, being able to talk to make sure. And then we kind of call each other on it now too, where it's like, hey, I think we're on different levels. Jess is talking strategy and we're talking execution. Let's all come up together or come down together so that we know that we're talking about the same thing.
I love that. Like you all have defined a language that helps categorize the pathways. And that's really indicative of saying like we built a culture when you start having unique language for your space and being thoughtful of like, how do we operate? That consistency, I mean, it probably takes a little bit, but not too much as long as everyone's committed to it. When you bring new people onto the team of like, here's how we talk, here's how we organize our ideas. But it creates a world within itself. It creates like an actual fluid team. Now, I think this is very interesting. Because I love that you bring such a fresh view. You come with ideas, especially as that creative director, being co-founder, right? Like you have a high leadership position. You have not made a video game. Like you've not been the one, like the developer in doing this. So like you're working with people with a different level of expertise. What is it like to lead people with an area that you don't have expertise in? Because I think that's sometimes a struggle with leaders where we think like, I need to be an expert in everything that I oversee. And that is sometimes micromanaging and also sometimes impossible when you are leading teams that do big projects that cover a lot of things. So how do you grapple and work with expertise that is not in your area, that may not be a language that was one of your firsts to learn within that space?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I think it's what terrifies investors and everybody,
myself included. Yes. Tell me your ways. Okay.
I know they're like, that no, it's so funny. Like, I think I think what it comes down to, like, this is actually, I'm like, where is my mind going? Okay, this is where it's going.
Mm,
So I think that there's some core things on like human motivations and leadership and some things like that.
yeah.
And I think you take little pieces wherever you go. And funnily enough, like one thing that's like really I brought through my life and like leadership stuff is I was a Division 1 athlete. I was a volleyball player.
Yeah.
Go Running Rebels. Yes. So I was yes, that's in Vegas for
Uh-huh.
anybody. That's a UNLV. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so I grew up playing sports. Like I won a state championship. I was a captain, won state championships.
Yeah.
Then I went to play D1 and then, you lead teams and I coached.
Mhm.
And actually my first real paid job was like an NAIA coaching gig after that. And so when you coach, it's really interesting because you look at the people that are brought into your team and
Mhm.
you need to figure out what you need to give them to get the best performance
Mm,
out of that player. And it's not like star players or whatever, but it's like if you have like nobody knows volleyball, so I probably shouldn't say that. Well, like, but for example, if you have a lot, like if you have like an offensive, okay, football, maybe no one knows football either. Okay, but like you can imagine that the running backs have a different workout, than the offensive linemen. Like there's different like some people need to run long distances and some
mhm.
people need to like hold the line and so just bringing that so like really so I feel like and just like teamwork too, like figuring out how people work and tick and
Mm,
all these things and then also I had to educate myself, you know
yeah.
clearly. So there's that whole piece. So there's one part that's like the actual leadership part of understanding people and
Mm,
relationships and communicating and what we call good conflict. It's applicable through leadership and business and talking to people and all of that. And then hiring, and then I have a good eye for talent. So
mm.
and I know what I like. So, like we have gorgeous art. You ever go check out worldreborn.com. Our art is gorgeous. And that is because we got this like Hail Mary to like my favorite digital artist in the world and to come on the project. And she
You're
said,
like,
yes,
dream.
and then she like, yeah, like, and then like people, I kept collecting these brilliant people. I had started writing the story myself. And then someone was like, hey, like, get it, like, meet this like narrative director. And I had done some like very basic things.
Yeah.
So I should also say, so before we got any of the money or anything like that, I had a lot of novels on ice. So I have a couple trilogies in my head that I've been like playing around with.
Right.
And so when I first knew I wanted to go down the interactive story game route, I was like, can I write a non-linear story? Like, am I good at this?
Because that's
And
hard. That's a
so,
lot of trees to build out.
and then to get them to come back, it's
Yeah.
easy to make them branch. It's
Yeah.
hard to gotta bring them back. And so so there's a Twine open source, you know, platform where you could do like stories you could put together. So a free source. And then I did like Khan Academy for like 3 days.
Hmm.
Don't test me now. I like literally crammed it just so I could build the game so that like it all went out. Like when you cram something in 3 days,
Yeah.
like computer science, it doesn't stick around. But anyways, so I did just enough
Yes.
to be able to do this. And so the story I chose was it's called Pitfall. I think it's still on our website. And it is so I have this metaphor for how I explain common ground activism.
Hmm.
I say it's like if you're in a deep, dark pit and you're trapped with a dragon, the world will tell you that you have two choices. You either slay the dragon or get eaten by the dragon, but neither of those choices will get you out of your deep, dark pit. And so, like, we need to be a society of high functioning dragon riders, because we don't want to just survive, we want to fly. So I had this whole metaphor I'd used for years.
Hmm.
And so I was like, let me take the metaphor and make it into an interactive story game. And so it was like super goofy. You like find yourself in this deep dark pit with a dragon. Except now you could pick what kind of tools to use, and you could basically use those tools to harm or to help.
Hmm.
But the first instinct of most gamers is to like attack,
Yes.
right?
That's
And
what we're
so
taught.
you
If
have to
there's a
attack.
health bar, you attack it, right? If it's
you you attack, and if you are aggressive towards the dragon's going to blow fire at you. And so
yeah.
so the first part of that interactive story game, most gamers were dying all the time, and they finally got to a place where they got strong enough to defeat the dragon, and then they just defeat the dragon, and then they just like die this like slow, painful death,
Because you're still stuck in the
and like
pit.
'cause you can't get out of the pit, like
You didn't
but
think of
like
the
if you make
long-term problems.
no, yeah, no, you're still stuck, and then like if you but you had a choice to like observe a little bit more and to look a little bit more, and then you see the dragon's chain, the dragon's hurt. You could use those same tools to try to kill the dragon to help it with its pain. And then if you build trust, then you could pick up the axe without it killing you, and you set it free. And first it flies away, but it comes back for you.
Yeah.
It comes back for you and like brings it.
Trust.
And so trust, yes, exact. Trust is key. And
Yes.
so that was my first little play around with it. I sent it to some other game people, and that was the first one. They're like, okay, like there's some like talent here that I was like able to squeak through. And then the second one was the story, which is now the story. And this is actually like if you go play the game, this scene is now within the game. I wrote this little scene. It had to do with like race-based stress. And I had teens test it. And after testing, 80% said that they felt more confident to engage in a conversation around race.
Oh.
After like 5 minutes of gameplay, it was another twine. So like no pretty art, nothing, just interactive story. And race is a really tough conversation that most people don't feel comfortable tackling. And these kids felt more confident to engage in that. And that's when we knew that we're onto something. And so I had just enough. And then I also had like being a comms director, you work with talent for developing websites and brands and messaging and brand and all that stuff is there. And so people saw just enough talent, I think, to garner like a little tiny bit of respect. And then the leadership stuff, I think, just take what you have, and I don't feel like I have to be an expert at everything. I do need to know my audience incredibly well so that I can speak to what I believe the audience is and do a lot of testing, but we also do a lot of testing, so that's a really long answer.
I loved it though. I love long
question.
answers because
Okay.
short answers don't really get us much. Like it leaves too much mystery. I like knowing like here's the process you went through, the approach and how you're creating it and how you pull people to help understand it. Because ultimately what you're trying to achieve with World Reborn or even just this shorter version of the pit is something very difficult, which is asking us to retrain our brain, to not default to our initial action to say, think a little deeper, think a little bit further into the future. How is this going to impact you? How does this change your circumstances? How is this different than what you've normally been? And that's the same approach with leadership of saying like, hold on, even though this is how like other video games have made it, let's think more long-term here. Yes, it may take more resources. Yes, it may take more time. Yes, there's a little bit more trust that comes in as we're working towards this vision, but the dragon comes back. You get out of that pit. And I think this is actually a really nice metaphor of what you all are trying to achieve with this game is that it's going to take time, but it takes commitment. It takes effort. It takes patience and heart and actual care because you can't just like, there's not like, oh, I'm going to pretend to care about this dragon, but like there's a genuine, like, I need to be invested in this dragon as much. And it feels very much so that this is a story almost a little bit about itself. It's not intending to be, but there's small snippets of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. There definitely is. And this is like the whole point, right? Is like we say, like, set your like this is one of our common ground activism stuff is like, what are you trying to achieve at the end of the day? Like I could call somebody a racist, win my argument, but is that person any more likely to want to help me? Probably not. And that's the person I need most because my son is 7 right now, but our family's tall. Pretty soon he's going to be like a 6'9", like our family's really tall. He's going to be like a tall black kid,
You could have said 5'9" and that would have been tall for me. I'm like 5 foot. Okay.
we're like I said, sports. We're tall. We're tall. But at some point he's going to look threatening, And I need the person. I already have the commitment, of others that are already on board. But like I need the person that would have called and said like, hey, there's suspicious activity in my neighborhood when he's just waiting outside his friend's house. That's the person I need if I want my son and my family to be safe. Right? Like, so me calling that person a racist and possibly turning them off, having a pointed finger instead of an open hand when I could bring that in, that's what was going to keep my family and stuff safe. So there's that. And then I should also mention, so World Reborn, there's actually no dragons in World Reborn.
Fair enough.
So
Just with the pigs.
just to be clear, I mean, they're actually like, we will have little Easter eggs. So if you guys are watching, like there'll be little Easter eggs to like Pitfall, our like sad little amazing game that I still love. But yeah.
Fair clarification. But I love, because what you're hitting upon is sometimes, again, these are important discussions, and it's especially with some that hit a lot more home, right? When you talk about your own son and what he's going to experience and what has happened in this world, because it's not hypothetical, unfortunately, right? Like we know these are experiences that have happened, are currently ongoing, and exist, especially in certain areas in the United States more than others, right? And so when you're talking about situations like race, ones that feel very personal, these are as much socially charged as they are emotionally charged. It's hard to say we need to have a discussion about this when it doesn't feel like that's a fair responsibility to put on some people's shoulders to say, you need to reach out to this person who would put your son in danger, would put you in danger, would put your friend in danger, right? And so I think you're creating a really useful tool in a video game that makes it accessible to so many more people to not only learn how to reach out and start those conversations, but also to reflect on their own, on our own, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it creates this really lovely space to be able to do that. So someone once called, so lizard brain, like people talk about the lizard brain, like when you're like lizard brain comes up and like you can't, like no one can think, right? And one like really great thing is like to like ask yourself, like, what does a lizard want? And a lizard wants just to be seen. Like that's what the lizard wants, is to be seen. And it's really hard to see people in that moment. And it's such a like, and so there's some of these tools that are like, if you could just like, if someone hits lizard brain, with you, it's harder to do it when you are yourself. We'll work on that within the game too. So like when you get to your own lizard brain, like how do you come down? But when someone gets the lizard brain with you, and sometimes it's just like bringing it down to just like, hey, I see you, like it's like, you're not a racist. Like, and this actually like comes back to like even some of these. So for example, some of these tools and like getting people out of that space is when I have, because when we look at race and do like when I do trainings around race, I usually do it from a race and reconciliation perspective. And so for reconciliation, there has to be an acknowledgement of pain and wrongdoing to take any kind of step forward. So whether that's at the societal level or the interpersonal level, there has to be that acknowledgement of pain and wrongdoing. And often, whether people of color or anyone else that has been hit by some of this stuff, you can't even get that because people are on the defense, and they're on the attack, they're on the defense. And so you can't even like, oh no, there was a reason why they got shot, right? Like, well, did they submit right away? Like and it just sets you off. Right. And so a lot of times when I have these conversations, as soon as the conversation starts, I'm like, hey, listen, especially if I'm talking with someone. So I biracial Black person talking with a white person and say like, hey, listen, there's this thing called race-based stress. And as a person of color, you are constantly aware of your color all the time. You think about it when you buy clothes, you think about it when you go interview, when you go into the grocery store. Even you walking into the room can change the dynamic of the room because people are thinking twice about what they're saying and like, all these things. And so that is stress. That is a constant within your life of constantly having to think of your color all the time and how it affects you and how people perceive you. If you are the majority color, you don't have to think about your race every second of the day. And so when you are confronted with your skin color, you will experience race-based stress. It's very uncomfortable especially because you're not used to it. And so just because you experience race-based stress does not mean that you are like, so I'm like, you are going to experience this. It will be uncomfortable, but I want you to know that that is normal. That is completely normal. You are safe. because people react a different way. They either get like guilty or they get like defensive or like, and so I'm like, hey, you could experience this thing and it could even feel like you're being attacked because maybe it feels like your identity is being attacked or like whatever, but like just know that like you are not attacked. You are just experiencing race-based stress. And it is important for people of color to be able to share with you their experiences without you feeling attacked. So let's just like naming it and putting it sets like a good tone. And then also just like some of these things with like breaking down some of these terms that we use and we just throw out, but just like, hey, like privilege does not mean that you haven't suffered and that you haven't earned what you have and that you don't deserve what you have. It just means that like your skin color hasn't been a barrier to getting there, like
Right.
just like laying out some of these things can like put people like, okay, like this is like, just like set that. And so like, these are all tools that we want other folks to learn because it comes in so useful because we have to be able to talk about these big problems that we're facing. And right now we're at a point where like, we can't even bring up problems without people attacking each other or shaming each other. And then we just push ourselves farther into extremism, polarized, so that we can't even address the problem because we're so far in the opposite direction.
Right. And that's difficult. I like that you're creating a space to build a foundation. Like instead of just saying let's talk about the issue, you're like let's create a space first where we can talk about this issue. Let's make sure we're both in a position where we can talk about this issue, right? There's I'm going to say the word prerequisite again, right? But that's what it is saying, hold on here before we dive right in, because we're going to come at this from very different emotions, very different perspectives, different expectations of what's going to happen in this particular conversation. Yeah, let's just take a breather a first minute before we dive in. And that can be a big part of it. And I applaud and I love this particular angle. And I like that you're taking this in through a video game space, right? Where we get to learn. And as like Family IT Dude mentioned in chat, like there's a lot more gaming communities understanding how gamifying education is such a powerful venue right now as more people can learn, understand, engage in perspectives, sympathizing opportunities, right? It's an important piece. What you're trying to do is a lot. How do you make a game do so much? At what point do you have to say like, maybe we can't handle this part yet? Or do you just continue to try to grow it? Because especially when you're talking about certain social issues, let's even just talk about race, right? It's very hard just to pick out like the one sliver line of race and not recognize other issues like economics or, gender or like, and we can continue to layer out this parfait of
all
life,
the things.
right? So how do you make sure this doesn't become too much and still has focus while not at the same time minimizing the complexity of humans and the experiences we have and the understanding and depth that we bring?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the nice things is that we see our common ground activism as like the base to everything. So that hits all the SD. It's applicable to every topic issue. So we picked race here, but we could apply anywhere all the time. Like it's just like in a way to approach basically like getting folks to focus on shared interests and shared like, humanity and stuff. And so even on our game, World Reborn, like we'll hit all the UN SDGs eventually. Like we hit it, we'll touch it all, right? And people are like, this is ambitious, and you're like, oh my gosh, like how do you do this?
Yeah.
And so well that the irony is like we are actually entertainment first. And so like we are like full, like you should be having fun. You should be like entertainment first. So like we don't want to be preachy and stuff. And the way that we set up the game actually allows for that in like really nice ways and for representation and really cool, fun ways. A lot of the game, so like the missions in real life. So let me break it down a little bit, like how the game works. So like you guys are like, you're like, how are you doing this with a game? Here, I'll explain. Let me explain. Do you like how I'm having a conversation with myself and then answering myself?
No, this is perfect because then I can just sit and listen. So thank you.
I'm just here for you back.
Thank you.
So So how it works is, so the premise is there's been this cataclysmic event that's fractured the world into multiple realities.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a secret underground group that's recruited you. They need you to save this other reality that only you can save. And then they need you to join the rest of us to save this reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so this other reality is like, it's like supposed to be this utopia or whatever, like this futuristic institute, like, but it's like Game of Thrones meets Euphoria. There's all these factions and there's like this deep underbelly of like this thing that's happening, and you have to find answers before it's too late and that whole reality is destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
You're also the only one that can see this insidious thing called rot, and so you're the one that like causes like pain and destruction and suffering, and like you're the only one that can see it. And so you spend energy, so your good energy, on your choices within the interactive story game, trying to save this world. And the only way that you get energy is by doing stuff that feeds your soul in the real world. And so you're going to get missions that are going to be brought to you by other players just like yourself. And so, like, I could totally see, oh, like, dang it. What did I do?
That was like in Zoom.
Apple.
Okay.
I know. I'm sorry. It's Apple. It's Mac products. No one asked for that. Anyways, so the way it works is that these missions are going to be brought to like real life players, and creators will have missions, and each mission will have multiple steps in the mission.
Yeah.
And each time you take one step, it'll give you energy to continue on the main campaign, but it's also preparing you to do something in real life. So, for example, let's say it's an anti-bullying mission. The first step might be like, hey, think about those around you at school, work, who's often bullied or marginalized or goes by unseen. And like you think about it in your own life, you write it in your private log, and then you get energy for that. And then the next step is what's something kind you could say to that person to make them feel seen? And you write it in your private log and you get energy for that. And the last step is go leave an anonymous note of encouragement for that person. And so it could be anything. So like we've been talking to brands about doing like, it could be a local goodie bag or a goodie bag for your local women's shelter. And the first few steps is like learning about like women's shelters and like why we need them and what are some of the needs, and then you finding where your local one is, like all stuff that you can do right there. And the final step is like, okay, go do that thing. And if it's appropriate, we have you take a TikTok style video. So the TikTok's gonna be integrated in the game. You have a TikTok style video that's gonna show you doing that final step, and it has the hashtag of the mission, the creator. So like will hopefully inspire, and hopefully music, so it like inspires others to like do that action that you just did, and then whoever the creator is that like pointed you to do that action. So it's like so it's this really nice kind of loop of you getting able to practice dealing with like super complex characters. And in our game, it's not about charming characters or getting them to like you. It's about building trust. So
different motivation.
Pro tip.
Yes.
Pro tip here for life. Don't try to get people to like you. Try to build trust with folks. It will change your world. You make different decisions. Trust me. So you practice the interactive story, and then you get to like do small things in real life. And those things actually make you, and like we've tested them, they actually make you feel fantastic. So you feel good playing the game, but you also feel good doing a lot of things. And sometimes it's others centered. A lot of it's other centered, but some of it's also like, hey, how do I have the tools to be able to handle all these things?
I'm writing down real quick, also build trust, not likability, because I think that's so smart. I wish I had learned that a lot younger in my life, but I love how much your game is thinking about the actual world. Like because right where we think of video games as escapism, you're like, how do we begin to merge this, especially with TikTok? Part of me is very worried in case TikTok is banned or whatever that may look like.
I know.
Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, right? We'll find an alternative. Whatever that happens to look like. But
I'm holding on. They're taking it to court. It should be years. Taking it to the Supreme Court. That should be years. We should be okay.
Plenty of lawsuits that will continue to delay that.
Yeah, we're just going to continue. Yeah.
But
that's my kind of hope.
Yeah, but I mean, And I think this makes sense because we're already seeing in other games of like where people are taking pictures of like, here's this progress, here's this thing that I'm doing. And we're starting to branch that out. Like, I mean, what was it? Even like the last Spider-Man game or the last God of War. It's like you can take pictures in these games and we bring it out of like, here's who I am. And there's ownership of it. This, of course, is much more intensive and reflective of the unique behaviors that they're doing. And a video is much more than just a screenshot that we're taking. But there's a lot of, again, like there's more ownership in seeing you're there. I'm very interested to see. So currently you all are getting ready for the beta stage, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a beta that'll be coming out in fall. So everyone mark your calendars. You can also sign up for the wait list,
Okay.
worldreborn.com. But yeah, this fall we'll have our beta. We've been testing. And we have some cool brands that I can't talk about yet and some cool folks coming on board. So I am very, very excited. Also have some like really cool missions around stuff with like children's hospitals and like animal shelters and like a lot of good feeling stuff. So it's pretty cool.
That's really exciting. I'm breathing a little bit for you because that sounds like a lot to coordinate at the same time. And the fall is going to be upon us very soon.
I know.
Right. It's fine.
I know.
It's fine. Deadlines are.
It's okay. We're gonna be fine.
Yeah. But it's so exciting too at the same point of like, okay, here's going to be a much bigger show of how people can start interacting and testing. And because you said like we've been doing more testing along the way, seeing how people are responding. Beta tests are a big point of this test. Now, we're going to take a quick little 5-minute break, a little bit of a breather. I'm a little bit behind on doing this 5-minute breather because I was just really into the conversation and I was not watching my clock because this was great. I'm enthralled to see where you're continuing to take Reborn. So we're going to take a 5-minute breather and then I want us to come back and continue this conversation of what are we hoping for the beta? What are you hoping to see, especially in this showcase with TikTok or with the age demographics that you're reaching out to? So we're going to come back there in a few minutes. Friends, take your bio break, take a quick bathroom break, all of that fun stuff. And if you happen just to be sitting at your computer, right over if you are on Twitch, the link to World Reborn is tagged linked right up at the top there, so you can click on that and go check out and sign up for the wait list as well, so you can get on board to play out the beta. So be aware, there's lots of options. You can already start to get involved. And good friends, we'll see you all in 5 minutes. Bye, everyone. friends. Guess what? We're back here at Pink Pixels. In our second half, we have the Jessica Murrey joining us from World Reborn. We've been diving in to the foundations behind this game, what prompted the inspiration, how it goes to building the team, and of course, about the game itself. Now, Jessica, you've done so much into this game, and you, of course, we know beta is launching this fall. Everyone can go over to World Reborn. The link is over in Twitch, and you can sign up to be a part of the beta testing, which is a great way to provide feedback and get a little bit of a quick preview of what is to come and to get involved and of course to support such a fascinating and first of its kind adventure activism game. Tell me, what is it like to be like, this is a game that no one else has done before, right? Because there's plenty of games like, whoa, we've done this kind of storytelling, or we've seen a battle royale before, but like, what does it mean to be a trailblazer in this space?
Yeah, no, oh my gosh. Well, there's a lot of things. First, there is a lot of people telling you that like you don't know what you're doing. So that will I know. So there's that. But it's so funny because I think like my co-founder Alicia and I, we were just following what we thought made sense for the objective that we've been pursuing. And so for us, it like makes a lot of sense. And then also if you look at like the pain points for like, we're really focused on Gen Z, you know, and looking at the pain points, epidemic of loneliness, dealing with relationships, mental health, caring about all these, like just makes a whole, but they also live like beautiful art and storytelling, all that stuff. Just makes a lot of sense to us. What it does though is when you have something that's very innovative, there's two sides of it. So there's a lot of opportunities that provide you with what we call like blue ocean opportunities. So because we are, and we saw some of those blue ocean opportunities on our business model to help us, for us to raise money and actually make this a for-profit, because we're trying to reach as many young people as possible. Like we need a lot of money to do that. And so we were able to take advantage of it on our business model. And I'm happy to like go into that and like how we did that. And so that unique value proposition that we were able to tap into. But on the other side, there are some big challenges. And one of the big ones is that we don't have a set community that knows they love adventure activism games, and real fantasy games, even though we're pretty sure they're going to love it.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have to build a community from scratch. And like, we're pretty sure that there's like a Venn diagram that we're like, okay, if you're like into like stories and narrative games, and you also care about something of the world and like your mental health, and you like to take like kind of adventurous, we think this is for you. But creating that community from scratch is extremely challenging. And it's one of the reasons why we're doing a early beta in the US. We're just going to put it out for a limited time because we are going after early adopters. So like those that are like, yo, I'm in to try something new and different, which is not everybody. And if you're not an early adopter, that is okay. I love you so much still. But that is one of the challenges. So there's really cool stuff on the business side. And all sides, you know, but there are some absolute challenges having an innovative game.
Yeah. I mean, it's so great that you are doing something so different and you have gotten some investors on board. Obviously, you came out of Niantic, you know, Pokemon Go, which I still love so much. So cheers to Pokemon Go. But Niantic, of course, you were part of their incubator. You've got Riot in helping with the support of this as well. And you've raised millions on this to get investors on board. What was the thing that most investors said, yes, this is worth me putting my money behind? This is me saying, I believe in what you're putting forth and that this is going to be worth it.
Yeah. So we've raised to date, we've raised 4.6 million, which it's really interesting. Actually, if I take a slight detour and then I'll come back to the main question, if I don't forget it, because I'm getting old. So remind me again. So hold this question in case I forget it. I'm going to go down a tangent. So raising money is very difficult, especially in today's climate. And so, and especially if you're a person of color. And so there has been, so as part of the first 100 in history to get over $1 million as Black women. And then I think I'm like top 20 for how much I've raised, which is pretty sad because there's a ton of venture money out there. And so last year in 2023, when we raised our 3.5 round, venture funding had dropped at 70% for Black founders.
Whoa.
And so that only 0.5% of all venture capital went to Black founders last year. So that's a point. It's a 0.5. And then you can imagine that only like a tiny sliver of that is for Black women founders. So it's definitely been very challenging to raise money, especially for mobile games.
A little?
So yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And then mobile games too was really hard because with the Apple privacy laws and things like that, it's made it nearly impossible. Like you used to be able to just be like, oh, you love bubble shooter games? I'm going to send you my bubble shooter game. And like, I know it's going to cost me about this much to attract some of you. And then we think we can monetize X percentage of you at this amount. And it's been, and that's been really challenging. And so the cost to acquire users has skyrocketed. And so also during this time last year, most of the game VCs, venture capitalists or investors, very good money, they stopped funding mobile game companies. And so there's different ways to get money if you have a company. There's the publishing route, which is where a lot of people go. You go to a publisher, they will pay you everything you need to build the game, and they'll give you a royalty of that, of whatever that does. Right. We almost did that with Niantic. We have gone the VC route. And so in order to go the VC route, you have to have a really big TAM, so total addressable market. You have to be able to show that there's a big market and you can make a ton of money. It's got a hockey stick. Your graph has to go whoop at the end. So yeah, so venture capital is not for everybody. If you can't, because people are looking for 10x to like 40x returns on their venture. And so if you don't have a pathway to give people that kind of money back, at least like 10x, if they put in $1 million and you don't think you can give them 10 million back, it's going to be hard to get them to invest in what you have. And so what we did is we said, hey, listen, yes, I am different outsider, not from game industry. However, I come from the movement building industry where I am not beholden to these laws of like how you're supposed to market a mobile video game. Like those don't mean anything to me. I didn't know they like now. I mean, they do. There's lots of good, important lessons that people have experiences for that you need to take. And so I've taken those. So I'm like, don't worry, everybody. But we built in what I call like organic growth, and this idea of like grassroots movement building into the DNA of our game. And so in this way, we think that we can attract users because of like how we've designed the game. And so in games, free-to-play games, there's a equation there's an economic equation of like of the business of the game. So it's lifetime value of your customer. So how many customers, how long and much you can monetize them over your CAC. So how much does it cost you to acquire those users? Right. And you want as big as a ratio as possible, right? You want like 3 to 1 is good. But you want like 7 to 1. Like
there's
it costs
the
you $1.
Yeah.
Yes, there's exactly. And so we feel with our business model that we have several shots on goal. So what we mean by that is, one, we have built-in advertising. So we can have, Caustic Phoenix, you could have a mission in World Reborn and like about your platform, and we help you design it. And then you could send people to do your mission in World Reborn, walk you through it. And then they can make TikToks of themselves doing that mission. And then our players and then we'll have some kind of mark for World Reborn, we'll send it out to their followers. And then you would share that, right? You'd be like, oh, look at how they're changing the world. You would share that. So that is technically built-in advertising if we want to make it feel icky, but like, hey, we're raising money here, but let's just say that it's for good, but we're raising money. So built-in advertising.
Yes. But this aligns with like, especially charitable organizations. Like if I'm like, listen, we're St. Jude, we are Wounded Warrior Project, we're MS Society, and we want people to know that we exist and how you can help us in a variety of ways, not just always raising money, but like,
yeah, exactly. And so we're not charging nonprofits right now. So like so for nonprofit, exactly. If you have something, when we're like, if you have your mission, we'll
Hmm.
want to feature a young person as the voice to walk you through it. But like, we'll give you publicity, and all we ask is that you point people to our game, um, to go play it. And the thing is that they're actually looking for that, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like we're empowering young people to believe in themselves and to change the world. So it's not a hard ask.
Yeah.
Um, and so that brings us to the other side of the model. So the top part of like the lifetime value. Um, so there has been a trend for the game industry for the free to play that it's gone. It used to be like when I was like first getting in the game industry, it was like 5% of users were premium users that did in-app purchases,
Yeah.
and now it's dropped down to where it's typically like 2%.
Huh.
Of users are your in-app purchases. So they call them whales, right? And a lot
Hmm.
of people depend on the whales. And then the only way to monetize the other 98% is through video ads, which is normally like 0.01. It's like 1 cent usually that you can monetize them. We think we can monetize the other 98% of users that don't want to pay, so we can make it accessible for everybody at a much higher level because of the high quality that we are doing. So, for example, remember, so before I had mentioned, um, like I'm say this without saying any brand. So we're talking to a brand right now that
Yeah.
has a lot of is a retailer for beauty products.
Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
use your imagination. Use your imagination for this.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
talking. So we could say like, hey, we know you care about Gen Z. You've proven that you care about all these things that are important to us,
Hmm.
and we want you to have a meaningful interaction with them. And so we're going to have this women so this like those goodie bags for the women's shelter, for the women that are just like leaving their homes with
Yeah.
nothing, right? Like we say like, hey, go, if you go do it in this, like this is brought to you by this brand. If you choose to do it there, you know, we can double your loyalty points um, for doing it there. So we could actually get boots into stores for some of these things, because eventually the beta won't have it, but our grand launch will have geolocation and augmented reality. So these cool super rifts to other worlds open. Like as when you finish the final step of a mission, there's a super rift that opens to another world that you actually is an augmented reality that you actually get to enter in. And there's like remnants to like secrets of the world, like how the world fractured to begin with, all this stuff. And we can geolocate those rifts
Hmm.
in actual locations, and we can get, like I said, we can get boots to stores. So we could get our players to do good in the world and capture that and like send out those. So it's exponentially more valuable
Hmm.
than just a video ad that no one's going to watch because they're going to like, oh, a video ad, let me put down my phone
Yeah.
until
I
it's
feel
over,
I feel very called out in this moment, but yes.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so in this way, we feel like we have several shots on goal. So it's like
Hmm.
we can, our goal is to reach as many kids and be as accessible as possible. And
Right.
so we need to bring brands into, subset that cost. But we can make the brands do good. We can also make the brands do matching stuff. And then we can also help lower user acquisition costs through creators that have ways to change the world, as well as just our everyday players that have ideas to change the world, and nonprofits and even brands that have ways that can make the world a better place. And so that's how I was able to raise money um, during this time, is because we made a case
Yeah.
that and what's great about it is that a ton of people within the industry told me that this is not great. They told me it wouldn't work, that it's just not how games are run or done, and this like doesn't work. And I'm happy to say that I can't announce it yet, but we've landed some pretty big brands for Gen Z, and this is before we even have our product. And so in the beta, by the time of beta, you'll be able to see who's going behind the brands. And not only is this brand giving us money to be featured and do missions to change the world, but they're also going to be our paying to promote our game, which is really and they're just like the best brand I could like imagine. So like it's just like it's so cool. So
Did you just do like a small little scream like when the email came back and you're
I
like,
did.
oh my God? Like,
No, I like had a full on, it was so like true story.
yeah.
Like leaving the thing, because it was like, okay, like the CMO wants to talk to you. I like fly down there like with like literally like 12 hours in it. Like I was like
You're, like
going to
putting
bed
together a
like
presentation.
yes.
Like, here we
Like
go.
like in the like when I got like the yes and I was like driving back, I like I like fully was like it's like what is
We
I
did
was like,
this.
oh, what? No, I literally like, and I went to like see my advisor. I was like, my chest is tight, and she's like, Jess, I think you're having an anxiety attack. I was like, I I don't have anxiety. She's like, you do today. You do today.
Congratulations.
So congratulations. This is huge. Yeah. No. So it's really exciting.
Yes.
But yeah, that's how and it's interesting because people are always telling they're like, I hear this all the time, and you've probably heard it too. It's like you shouldn't innovate on more than one thing. People like always say that. It's like, don't innovate on the business model. Why you innovate on this? You're already innovating on so many things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, I hear you. However, would you when you blow up the box so much, it does present unique opportunities
Yes.
that you should take a look at and see like how can you how can you make this work, and does it align with your mission. So and we totally believe that like we're, as you can tell, we're much less about like bad guys and like, hey, let's like bring people in to like do more, like let's invite as many people in to do good as we can, including brands that have a lot of both money and power and reach to like empower the rest of us,
Yes.
So that's kind of our motto there.
Well, let's just note that when we think about change in our world, it can't just be on the individual level. So I love that you're like, hey brands, hey big companies, you want to be a part of this, because it does. It need, like, even if I think like the basic level of recycling, as much as individuals recycle, you have to get major corporations to also be on board to have anything significant. So when you're talking about any sort of good act, when you can bring in individual and companies, that's where you're amplifying. You're really kind of addressing that, like, on my own, I can't do enough. But that's the thing, like, as you tell your story on TikTok, as you're working with other brands, you are no longer so small
by yourself. Exactly. Yeah. And this is like the whole thing that like leads up to like one of the big reasons why we're doing the game and the story so important is like we want that sense of identity and belonging. That like you belong to something that's like bigger and you're important in it. You're like a key crucial piece to this. And we want you to like know that and feel that and like see like how powerful that you are, that you can like that you touch a lot of people's lives already. You don't even know that you touch their lives, and that you're going to inspire even more people that are close to you and maybe even people that you don't know too.
That's so exciting. Okay, so I know that you're thinking like this is a game. We're going to get people on board for this. In my brain, and maybe this is me thinking like with IT Dude, like you've blown up the box, you're making a brand new box. I'm imagining that this revolutionizes the way, especially Gen Z, but me, even like us older millennials, right, are also thinking about how do we see ourselves as actors. And especially perhaps it's because like since the pandemic that shattered a lot of the volunteer organizations that I used to do in person, right? Everything, even the good things that I like to, the causes that I support now, it feels very individual, or I just do it within the community, like the stream I've made. This feels like a unifying practice. This feels like it's something to say, hey, we're all working towards this together. Here's how we start telling collective stories and creating a unifying experience where we're all together. Like that to me is huge.
Yeah, no, we're going for world domination. Like absolutely.
Put
like,
it out there.
No, we're like completely. And like I was like, this is really ambitious. Like, yeah, we swing far. But I mean, this is what I think is so cool about it is like just like the multitude of stories. Because we have the fantasy story.
Yes.
And no one has to see the mistakes you make within that world, right? Like you get to like go on and experience and hopefully save that reality, you know? And at the same time, what the missions do for us is because the missions are going to be brought to you in conversation with somebody. And so it's also an opportunity for us to bring in so many more voices And to like share, like we're talking to like we'll feature some refugees in there, and like you'll learn that like, hey, like curiosity is a great way to overcome fear because we often fear things we're unfamiliar with, you know. And like we'll be able to like tie some of these, like bring in some more real life stories. So like as a, obviously like story lover, so you have like your
Yeah.
fictional story, but you also have your real stories that will hopefully help you connect and feel supported, like as you try and like venture out and try other things and
Mhm.
try different kinds of volunteer stuff to see what you fall in love with, because there might be an organization that has something really small for you to do and you get a little taste of it and you're like, I want to go learn more about how I get involved, and that's what we would love to happen.
I love this. I love the inspiration. I love the goals that you all are shooting for. This is exciting to say the least. I feel like, and yeah, don't hold back. World domination, that's on the table. Why not?
Why not?
Back in the first half, we were talking about like looking even just in the United States and how divided it feels. It's time for our own revolution, and why not through a video game? Now you
Yeah.
all are handling a lot, right? Like you're creating a space first within the game and the lore of it, in which it helps instructs, it guides, it gives us that learning and safe space where we can make mistakes before we go out and we enact and we provide. So not only are you telling like an actual story, but you also have to
Mhm.
provide a lot of learning resources. Like you also mentioned things like mental health. How did you
Yeah.
go about in fielding the right kind of information that is vetted, that is up to date, but also provides all the resources without information dumping, right? Because you can't just give like, here's walls of text
I
about,
know.
like how do you
Yeah.
make it
No.
consumable at the end of the day?
No, it's so funny. We find it, and so this is like Alicia's thing, right? Because
Yeah.
Alicia's a behavioral science researcher, and so she
Mhm.
makes sure everything we do like fits into like not just our theory of change, but is backed by research. And so it's been like interesting because we're still playing around with this. It's like, where do you say it? Where it's like, hey, like we will like quote like where this like came from,
Yeah.
and then like allow you to go, you know. Because at first it's hard not to put it forward like, hey, like this is all the science behind why breathing through your nose is so helpful, like, you know. And you're like, okay, you're like, okay, like let's just like, if you're curious about it, we'll give you ways to do that.
Yeah.
But there's lots of actually really fun ways, like, and this is like how Alicia and I like work together. So there's also going to be like houses.
Mhm.
So there's these things so there's sprites of chaos, but they prefer to be called sparks of possibility. You
Oh.
have, yeah, the main one, Dux, Dux. He's like your guide. He's hilarious, and he has older siblings, and so Ducks is like with the, and so we have all these like metaphors of like possibilities and all this kind of stuff, and like
Okay.
the rot wants to devour them, as you can imagine, and it grows. But depending on the choices that you make within the game and the missions you choose to do in real life will start to sort you on where your inner strengths lie. And that sorting is actually all backed by science that like Alicia did. So Alicia took at like mass studies of values and strengths for young people,
Mhm.
and was able to break them, see like consistent patterns and break them into 5 categories. And so there's new names. Let's see if I can get the new names for them
Ooh,
now.
okay.
But there's discipline, um, openness, hope, unity, and selflessness
Ooh.
as like 5 things, but they all have like really cool, so they all have a guardian spark
Mhm.
that
Oh.
is has its own personality and is so cute. And they're funny, and then they all also have their own like names, so like basically like houses or guilds. And so, and
Okay.
they're all pulled from like and the names of these, so it won't feel, you won't be like openness, like it's not going to be like that, right? Or
Yeah.
like hope, it's going to be, so like for example, I love Zal. So Zal is I mean, these terms and values are not Western values. Like these values have been around since like the dawn of humanity and have shown in different types of archetypes all over the world, you
Right.
know? And so Zal comes from the word Kazal, which is the name of an indigenous bird in South America that
Oh.
is the archetype for hope because it flies above the clouds, even in the darkest of times.
Oh, I love
Like,
this. This is like the lore. Like again, like I love that it's more than just Western
yeah,
stories because
yeah,
again, like when you're talking about like helping people feel seen,
yeah,
and understanding and expanding our own world, and you're
Yeah.
thinking of it right at the beginning. I'm sorry, move aside J.K. Rowling and your sorting hat. This is what we've been needing, and the new way in which we will be
Yes.
identifying and understanding. But it's so much. I think this is really beautiful. And I think it
Yeah.
also is something that allows us to learn, to evolve, and to continue to play to our strengths, but also know areas that we can grow as well, and to have a lot of pride in what we've created versus, being Slytherin and just being seen as sneaky and the bad guys every time.
Yeah. No, and there's combinations of them, which is so fun. And what I love
Yes.
about it is that like I think leadership is often seen as like one kind of way, but there's so many different ways that you can affect change and be like a really powerful, like looking at discipline, looking at openness, which also includes like inquisitiveness and curiosity, and like
Yeah.
how huge that is to be curious and open, and then like selflessness too, which like in our world really isn't like we don't necessarily prize that, but it's so like to be kind, and to like and to get and the thing is that when you are kind for the sake of being kind, you
Mhm.
are happier. Like that is scientifically proven that you are like kind people are happier when you do things for others and you know you're not going to get anything in return. It
Yeah.
actually gives you joy. So like there's all that. So what we hope is that like you will play the game and that you'll feel kind of seen, and you'll also see areas where you're like, hey, like we can get curious about it and be like, okay, I really want to like move up my like unity scale. Like
Yes.
like how do I, like we hope that like all that comes out. But yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Like I envision like the houses and like so they're like also write. So you become a writer. Like this is like your hero journey. You're gonna
Okay.
become part of a write. What's gonna be like a writer.
Yes.
And there's different types of like writer strengths and like all this stuff. But like I see cosplay. Like I see that like we all have like our writer, our house, and like you can like see it like face fights coming, folks.
Yep.
Like we have, like I said, world domination. It's big.
But you want, because now you have to think on again, because you're also thinking on that entertainment level. Like this is not just education, it's first
Yeah.
entertainment education. So how do you
Yes.
allow people to own it? How cosplay is such an important, and I mean, if you can get cosplayers on board, a lot more people get on board. Like, and that's how you see them
Yo,
at conventions and TikTok. Like,
absolutely.
yes, yes.
Absolutely. Like cosplayers, like come holler at us, like give us advice. Cause like we have some idea, like some of our artists, like a lot of our artists are from Cuba and like they already
Ooh,
have like really amazing like body art and stuff. And
yeah,
I was
love
like,
that.
yo, we're gonna come up with like you're gonna feel like a freaking like a warrior. Like
Yes.
we have all the things coming, but we want you to feel seen and like something that's real. Like
Yeah.
that this is a strength you have and you should be proud of it.
I love that. I love this. I can't wait. It makes me think like in Pokemon Go, I'm Team Yellow Spark. Like I'm ready to now share and find out where my strengths are. One also, I'm just kind of curious. Like I feel like I'm the kind of person who takes BuzzFeed quizzes, right? But like what,
Yeah, no, exactly.
right?
No.
At least even like this is as much as they will share externally in this game of like, here's the things that we're doing, here are the achievements that I'm completing, the activities that I'm doing. It is such a self-learning process. And I think that's in education, that's a part that is often missing, is that we're focused on what are the outcomes instead of what is
Yeah.
the reflection and understanding of yourself that comes from this. Because
Oh my gosh, totally.
right, like that is ultimately what changes your trajectory. You can learn a million things, but how you see yourself and what you
Yes.
value, that will
Hmm.
dictate any action, not just the short term, but what you choose long term to commit to. And I love that you're helping to guide like, who are you in this space? How do you activate and feel seen and empowered is the key
Yeah.
thing here of like you see yourself as being an agent of change, as someone who's saying, I see the world around me and I have power here. That's such especially when I think of younger generations, that's something when I was younger, I craved. Like, how do I take command of my world? I'm so excited about this. I'm getting goosebumps and I'm having a hard time sitting still the more we talk about this.
Yeah, I'm so
Like,
excited. Yeah, and I think it like comes down to just like it feeling like an immersive experience, right? Like
yes.
because like there's so many educational games that it's like, and then it's like, and here's the textbook definition of that thing you're feeling. And so the cool part is that we've like since we're telling our team like, hey, entertainment first. Like, if it's not fun,
Yeah.
we're not capturing the kids anyways. So you're not like, like, don't worry, we'll make like we'll make sure it's in there. But the missions also allow us to like have that moment so where you're just like in a little bit of a different headspace. So you can like practice, but you should feel like immersed, and you should also be thinking strategically of like, okay, like how do I find this answer? Who do I need to talk to? Like,
Yes.
oh, this, like, what's really going on? But we want you to feel immersed and in it, but also just like legitimately take away stuff that's going to make you feel good, like as that you can take into your real world with you.
I can't wait. I think this is amazing.
Yeah.
What a fascinating journey that you've gone from being a graduate with a journalism degree to here leading a studio that you're aiming for an international audience to change the way we do good in our space. Like this is what we hope for when we encourage our younger selves when we were young or we had all the dreams in the world to say go out and change the world. Here you are doing that. And I love it. I think this is exactly what we
Yeah.
want to see, and I think is such an inspiring and encouraging story to say not just in this game, but how much it is to believe in yourself, to believe in the vision that you see for this world and to hold to it to say, change that world. You can do that. I think this is so amazing. We're cutting it close on time. So I want us to talk in a final moment of for this game as we're preparing to go into the beta. What do you want in this first step? What are you hoping for, especially to our audience who's listening, who's intrigued, they're thinking about, do I want to sign up for the beta? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, right now what we're looking for is like we want to build a fantastic, like it's starting with a game,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully like it's going to move to a platform into like a brand and then we want it to take on a life of its own. And with this beta, what we're really hoping for is like finding our people, finding those that are going to, we'll need a little bit of grace because, like I said, there's a lot of new things that we're going to be trying out. But those that are really bought in, we say like no faint hearts. So like we're looking for those like lion-hearted folks that are willing to like try things and like help us make this something that is going to be like really hopefully life changing and build that community. We want this base community because we're building it from scratch to just be, these incredible souls, And so if this has touched you in any way, like I really hope you join our wait list and help us make the game even better and tell us what you love, tell us what you would change, just so because the game is supposed to be built for you. Like we're, this is the whole purpose of the game. And so yeah, that's it.
Yes, yes. If anyone listening today, if anything has tugged at those strings of your heart or mind, or even better, both, this is your community. These are your people. This is who you want to walk aside, So make sure you go visit World Reborn. Be a part of this, right? Trust that instinct where you say, this is intriguing to me. I also want to see a better world. I want to see this come to fruition. Act on it today. So that way, when it comes, months later, right, you don't have to go and find it again. Like just hop on the wait list. They will come to you, right? This will make it
we'll
easier because
we'll come to you.
Because the world is a crazy place right now. There are always a million things that pull us in different directions. But at the end of the day, when things matter to us, it's important to make sure we make time for those. Those small actions lead to bigger actions. It leads to who we are, what we care about. It's the same reason why I applaud and thank so many of you coming every week here. It's because you choose to want to learn. You want to become more involved. You want to be able to support cool, amazing endeavors in this space. You want to support cool, amazing people like Jessica, right? And so signing up, following all of those things, these are ways in which you can make sure that, you know what, I want this world to be better. I want to see what entertainment education can do. I want to see what this game that has never been done before, right, do in this space. There's a part about having hope. Hope is always really important, but you got to back it up with some steps. Jessica, I want to thank you so much for giving us a direction of where we can take those steps. I want to thank you for bringing so much energy and excitement. I cannot wait. I wish, for my sake, fall were much sooner, though I hope that you have plenty more days before that.
You need some more days. So.
I don't need those. The deadline can come quicker for me, but you all keep your deadline of where you need to get everything in the way that you do. I hope continually more investors, more venture capitalists. I hope more brands. I hope more content creators, I think more cosplayers, everyone continues to hear about this, because of course, the more people we get on board with this, the bigger the impact that can be, the more, the further developed the beta can push for. And that way, when it comes to launch, it will be the game that we need right now. So thank you so much. Before we let you go, please plug in. Where can we continue to learn more about you, about World Reborn? I know, of course, we've got the website pinned over on our Twitch account for the link. It's worldreborn.com. I know, real mysterious. What could it be?
I know.
What could the website be? Worldreborn.com. But where else can we continue to support and find all the cool things that you're doing, Jessica?
Yeah, no, I appreciate this. Oh my gosh, your words. It's like, if I could just I'm like, if I could only capture them forever, I'm like, wait, this is recorded.
Yeah,
perfect.
That's easy.
Awesome. No, I really appreciate that so much. So Waitlist, World Reborn. Also, if you want to continue chatting with us and the team and see where we are, and we'll be doing little testing, mini testing things, join our Discord. Discord, we're World Reborn Discord. We're also at World Reborn Game. On Instagram, on Twitter. You can try to follow me on Instagram, but you just see videos of my kids. So World Reborn is I want to get up to date on World Reborn, World Reborn Game. And then professionally, LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me. It's Jessica Murrey with an E. There's actually not very many of us. And then please, if you have more folks that you if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, someone in your mind is gonna love this, please send them our way. We're trying to make a case to the industry and the world that there should be more games like this, and that there actually is an interest in games like this, where there's been a lot of skeptics. So as many people as we can show that there is interest in a game like this, it really helps us. Really appreciate it.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Jessica. Good friends. Make sure you give a follow across the board, join the Discord. And of course, if you love the conversations we're having here, join us over on the Gamers channels. We're on all the different social medias, and we'll be back, of course, next Monday with another amazing episode of Pink Pixels. Jessica, once again, thank you to our wonderful chat audience. I love you all. Y'all are amazing, and I'll see you all later. Bye, everyone.